everyone. Can you hear me clearly? All right, a little bit? Okay. Well, thank you all so much for having me here today. I am honored to present this closing keynote. And first of all, before I begin, I would just like to say a huge thank you to the QS team for putting together this beautiful summit. Can we please give them a round of applause? I absolutely have enjoyed my last 2.5 days here at QS's Higher Education Summit, and I have learned so much that I can't wait to apply in my own organization, and I'm sure I speak for each and every single one of you in the audience as well. Now, this keynote is something that is very close to my heart, and it is something that I've heard over the last few days be iterated, which is how do we get Gen Z's perspective on what they want to see in higher education? And how at the same time do we engage industry? Do we engage entrepreneurship? Do we bring experiential learning? Do we ensure that the Gen Z that we are serving in the higher education space not only have their voices heard, but have their ideas and needs implemented in a way that is conducive and provides them the skills that they need to thrive? So today I'll be sharing with you a little bit about my own experiences, about the work I do with 50,000 Gen Zs across Southeast Asia and the world that implements this, and frameworks and programs that we've successfully seen unite academics, industry, and the Gen Z perspective. So a little bit, as an introduction, my name is Harsha, and I am a 21-year-old social entrepreneur. I am the CEO and co-founder of Ascendance, a Gen Z-led social enterprise that has been around for the last 8 years, and at the same time today has gone on to impact 50,000 students across 26 countries. Essentially what we do is we create entrepreneurship and experiential learning experiences, programs, and opportunities for Gen Z globally to engage with and develop the skills, the experiences, the competencies that they need to thrive through these processes. And we partner with, or we've been fortunate to partner, at least in the past, with over 800 schools, universities, secondary schools, primary schools even. We have run events just last year alone that have had over 300,000 Gen Zs engaged in viewers in some of our online programs. And we have run a total of over 200 events, workshops, programs throughout last year alone. And this year, I'll give you a spoiler, it's even more. But essentially what all this means is that, number one, I'm a student myself who is currently enrolled in an undergrad program at a higher education institution. But number two, we work with all of these Gen Zs and have the data and the kind of thoughts processes of these Gen Zs that we bring into developing our programs and developing the advice and the consulting we provide for universities and schools. So Ascendance itself, we work with the Malaysian Ministry of Education to run our programs at the secondary level. But at the same time, as I mentioned, I am a student. I study at the University of Pennsylvania, an Ivy League university in the US, and home to the Wharton School, the world's #1 business school. At the same time, I've been fortunate to receive the Diana Award for Social Action and Humanitarian Work on behalf of Ascendance, and was last year featured on Prestige Malaysia's list of 40 under 40 influential young people. So before I get into my presentation, I wanted to talk a little bit about the data and what do Gen Z actually think. So studies have shown that 50% of Gen Z are not planning or are skeptical about going into a 4-year degree program. And the reasons for that range. Some Gen Z, 49% of Gen Z, actually feel that universities need to tailor their curriculum to be adapted to the future. 60% of Gen Z want to go into entrepreneurship in some shape or form themselves. And of course, we have Gen Z out there who want to learn more practical skills, who at the same time, if you've heard over the last few days, want to learn more about SDGs, want to learn more about sustainability. So what this means is that there is this huge audience out there of Gen Zs that is left untapped. 50% of them that all they need is to feel seen, engaged, and heard, and have programs that reflect the things that they want to learn, which range from entrepreneurship, which are looking for personalized learning experiences, that look for opportunities for them to develop those skills, and to engage with industry. And if universities can be quick to adapt these few things, they get access to this market that has traditionally not been engaged. So it is really important that we see what we can be doing a little bit differently. And to start off, I'd just like to share my own story as a Gen Z. So I myself, back in 2019, had to make the decision of what I wanted to do after school. So I was 17 back then, and I had already been running my social enterprise, Ascendance, for about 3 to 4 years. So I started it at 13. By 17, was already, busy doing programs on behalf of Ascendance. I remember in high school, I would only be in school like 3 or 4 days a week, because the other times I would be in other schools, running initiatives, going for meetings, running the business. And like all 17-year-olds, when I finished my education, I had the question, well, what do I do now? Do I study a degree program? Do I run the business? And it was a very unique place for me to be in. Because on one hand, I was a straight A+ student. On the other hand, as I said, Ascendance had just won the Diana Award in 2019. So it was a time where people were finally returning our calls, our growth was just picking up, and I felt like I had to make a decision between being an entrepreneur and going to university. Fortunately for me, I had some very good advice from some mentors. And one of the things that they told me is, you don't have to choose. You can do both. But you have to find the programs that will enable you to not only thrive as an entrepreneur, but will teach you how to be an even better entrepreneur, that will teach you the things that you want. So the first thing that I was challenged to do is set a goal for my university. What did I want to learn out of it? And the goal that I set was, I wanted to gain a global perspective. I wanted to learn about how what we were doing in Malaysia could be replicated globally. And that led me to going out there and finding as many university programs that I could. And I found that the University of Pennsylvania had just in 2019 itself launched their hybrid program for working adults. So it was a program that was a full undergrad degree offered by the university, but it could be done, a chunk of it online, with opportunities to engage on campus according to your schedule. And every class that they offered in that undergrad degree was an applied class. That means they would teach you things that you would have to go and apply in your project or your business or your career immediately, and continue with the feedback you were getting from practice to better the things that you were learning and to improve the quality of the education you were receiving in classroom. So I enrolled for this program. I was very fortunate they accepted me. And I started, this journey of being both a student and an entrepreneur at the same time. And the amazing thing that I saw was that through this opportunity to both learn and experience, I not only became, yes, a better entrepreneur, but I became a better student. So what I would learn was I would be taking a fundraising class of how do you write grant papers better. And I would be in my career doing the proposals that I was learning about, actually going out there for client meetings. And because I was having these experiences, I would come back with better questions. I would understand the subject matter better. And it wasn't just things in the classroom. I was fortunate to get involved in opportunities outside that were offered, as extracurricular activities. And the university was really smart. They were very intentional about positioning each and every one of those activities as something that you could do to better your pre-professional skills and to teach you the skills that you needed to thrive. So for instance, I was vice president of finance at the Wharton Undergraduate Entrepreneurship Club. And again, one of the things that they were very specific about was teaching the skills that you need to pitch to companies, to develop corporate relationships. And as I was in that club, just a school club, learning these skills, I was able to, again, implement them in Ascendance. And naturally what we saw was that we saw Ascendance itself grow from, as our goal was, a nationwide project to an international organization. Now working with Fortune 500 companies, having events with amazing people from all across the world. We've worked with Meta, we've worked with Google, we've even brought in companies like Every Denizen from the US. And a lot of it supporting both kids in Malaysia, here in Southeast Asia, but globally as well. All because of that relationship. And at the same time, we've been fortunate to share our methodology of what we did and open up opportunities just through that university education that brought us around the world. From New York to Switzerland to the UK, we were fortunate now, through university, to have grown. Now, this was not just something that benefited my organization. But as a student, I saw myself, up until last semester, have a 4.0 CGPA as well. And that relationship between academics and learning and real-world experiences is not something unique to me. In fact, we have so many students who have done the same. We have students, for example, like Adrian. When he first started with Ascendance at 16, he had no idea what he liked doing. He had some skills. But as we started working with him, he realized his passion for writing. And by the time he finished school, by the time he was making his decision for university, he was already a published author. So it was very easy for him to have a goal of what he wanted to do next and enroll in a program that spoke to his skills, because now he could see the direct connection between what he was studying and what it is that he wanted to do as a career. We have students like Vinisha. Vinisha, by the time she was 16, also similar story, didn't know what she wanted to do. By the time she was deciding for university, knew something that she was passionate about. She liked graphic design. And because she already had that goal, by the time she finished university, she went from an average scoring student to graduating with a 3.7 CGPA. And at the same time, she already had a graphic design business with over 80 clients and 4 published books with her serving as their illustrator. So what we see is that there is this relationship. Education helps entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship helps education. But how do we develop programs that create this experience? That's the million-dollar question, right? How do you create it in a package, in a sense, almost, where students can go through a step-by-step process to simulate this experience within an organization? So I'll give you one example of how we've done that, and I'll give you the framework behind it. But essentially, one example would be Ascendance's Teenage Entrepreneur Challenge. So just this year, we ran this Teenage Entrepreneur Challenge for 8 different institutions, and we've picked secondary schools to pilot this year. And what we did is, we created this entrepreneurship accelerator almost, where in the first phase, we would get students who weren't the higher performers, they were average students, they were normal students. And in that first phase, provide them all of the skills that they needed to learn entrepreneurship. So we brought in industry experts to teach them things like finance, operations, sales, marketing. And they would have to have specific outcomes after each session that would prepare them to implement their own businesses. But we didn't stop there. It wasn't a pitch competition. The second phase of our challenge was actually tasking the students to run their own businesses. So each student now had to take what they had learned and actually go out there and implement a business that they were passionate about. And they would have to do everything from developing their products to going out there and doing their process flows, making sales, running, marketing campaigns. And what we saw was that all of these students were now able to take the theory that they had and implement it into practice. Of course, you can't just leave students on their own. They will, of course, face challenges. But that's how we were able to, customize the program to provide personalized learning. Because we paired each student team with a mentor from an Ivy League university. So we engaged student entrepreneurs from Harvard, MIT, Wharton, Princeton, and got those students to come in and mentor our Southeast Asian students. And what it did was form a relationship where they could learn about a different part of the world, draw experience from the best of the best, but also have personalized attention. So remember that statistic on personalized learning journeys? Now each student had someone who was observing what they were doing and would tailor the information that they would need accordingly. Some groups needed to learn pricing strategy. They had someone to teach them that. Some groups needed to learn, specifics of how do you deal with your supplier. They had a mentor to teach them that. And as this program continued to go on, it went on, throughout the year. By the time they got to the third phase of, presenting the data, of, having the findings of what they did, we saw 40 startups graduate from this project, many of them with fascinating ideas, and a lot of them with, that related back to SDGs. So we had one startup run by, again, remember, these are secondary school students. And what they did was, they went and learned from local universities how to purify waste oil and turn them into usable products such as candles. We had another team in Indonesia that basically went out there and learned, okay, if chemicals in water are an issue, in our water system, how can we create soaps, whether that's dishwash soaps or hand wash soaps, that basically come from all naturally sourced materials and all naturally sourced ingredients that would improve or reduce the level of chemicals in the water systems. So we know sustainability is important to Gen Z, but to really engage them, we need them to come up with the solutions. We need them to feel like they are part of the sustainable solutions that their universities, their schools are providing. And there's no better way to do that than by getting them involved. This is the version we ran for high school students, but we're also planning to run one for university students next year. And part of the reason why is because of what this means for universities. So I've shared all the data, I've shared the stories, but how do you implement this? What can a university do to adapt this in their own organization? And it's very simple. Our framework looks at 4 main things. Number 1, you have to have world-class content, which I'm sure many of you already have, so you guys are checked on that one in a sense. Number 2, you need to have communities that bring people together. Why our Teenage Entrepreneur Challenge worked was also because of that personalization, that mentorship. The schools themselves would come together. So students felt that they weren't alone, and they were incentivized by their peers, by people like them, to keep going and to keep their learning journeys. They need to have opportunities to practice what they learn, so that they see why it's relevant and how it's relevant to the things that they're doing. And finally, they need some incentive. So whether that's gamification and AI, or whether it is tying it up to the SDGs, to sustainable goals, they need a reason to keep going. And there's many different ways that this can pan out for each of your organizations. If you need any help, you can talk to me later and we can see what we can do together. But these are the 4 main pillars of what we've seen successfully is needed in a program to be run within an organization to really engage Gen Z. So, to conclude, do reach out if you have any questions and if you have any thoughts of how we can work together. But one of the things that I would love to just finish off on is to get everyone to reflect on how you were like when you were a student. What were the things that you wished as a student back then, before you had all your amazing experiences? What were the things that inspired you? What were the things that motivated you? What were the opportunities that are available today that you wish you had? Because at the end of the day, the issue with most students is not that we are not intelligent, it is that we lack experience. It is that we don't know what you all know now, having done so many wonderful things. And if you can give that experience to students now, if you can give them a taste of the world as it is, they will be so much more grateful for the opportunities and the learnings that you are providing. Because at the end of the day, we need the support of universities. We need education to make us better. And what we're trying to do is get students to appreciate that more by showing them the reality of the world. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you all so much for having me. Please do reach out. As I said, we have experiential learning programs that we look for universities to come on board. But even not, I would love to have a chat with each and every single one of you if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Wow, really impressive. Let us give her a big round of applause again. Our potential, brilliant young leader.